In the Legacy series, this Saturday, we talk about water.
Water?
Yes, water. Arima. Join us as we speak with the Honourable Member of Parliament for Arima, Ms. Penelope Beckles, about the chartered borough of Arima.
And good morning to our listeners. Good morning to our listeners. To our technical team, I'm getting a heavy rumble. Yes, good morning to our listeners and good morning to the Honourable Penelope Beckles, Minister of Housing and the Member of Parliament for Arima. It's good to have you in our program this morning, Minister. Good morning. Are you hearing me? We're having some today seemed to be the day for technical issues. So we're going to try and write that soon until we get back to you.
You are the God who is
Yeah, here we go.
and in you I trust. My life is in your hands, Jesus. You are the miracle working God.
All right, we're right back with you now. Good morning, Minister. It's good to have you with us this morning. I'd like to let my technical person know that I'm not hearing the Minister.
We get it sorted out in 1 minute, Errol. We're working on it.
Thank you. Okay, hopefully we're back with you. Good morning again, Minister. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm not hearing you at all. So what I will have to do is to use my own device.
Okay, are you hearing me now?
I'm hearing you now.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, good.
Great, so it's good to have you with us here this morning. We want to talk about Arima. Our ad said we're talking about water because I'm told that the original name for Arima was water or centered around water. Can you confirm that for me, please?
Well, I mean, some people say yes, some people say no. That's not actually the origin of the name, but like a lot of other things, you have disagreements from time to time. But I think most people agree that that is the origin of the name.
And Minister, you've been representing that area for how long now?
Okay, well, I mean, I started in 2000 for 10 years, and then I was away for 10 years, so serving again.
So it seems as though, to me, and even because of how you look and all that, you wouldn't believe that you have been in the politics for as long as now, to have had 20 plus years of representation of the people and service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I'd really like to congratulate you on that.
It's a little longer than that, actually. I mean, I actually started in 1992. I entered local government in the borough of Arima. So I started off in local government, and then I became an opposition senator. So I can comfortably say that it's close to 3 decades.
Wow. I'm tempted to welcome you to the Forever Young.
Well, I will accept that graciously.
Welcome. So we're talking about the borough of Arima, and you celebrated 133 years as a chartered borough. This week, is it Thursday of this week?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that status as a chartered borough?
Okay, so that, Arima is, I think, the only borough in the Commonwealth for that length of time, and being a royal chartered borough, which is a little different. As you know, in Trinidad and Tobago, you have Point Fortin is a borough. You have, let us say, there are 2 cities, which is San Fernando and Port of Spain.
Yes.
And you have Arima, that is a borough, and you have Point Fortin, that is also a borough. Chagonas, some others, because most people sometimes don't understand the difference.
Yes.
And then you have corporations.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the Sandagani Regional Corporation, for example, and you have the Mariaro Regional Corporation, and the Tabakik. So you, depending on, certain legal requirements that determines whether you are a city, a borough, or a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it would impact in terms of financial obligation as well as responsibilities to the various burgesses that you serve.
Mm-hmm. What would have caused Arima to be singled out as to get a royal charter?
Well, Arima, if you go back in history, Arima, let's take, for example, what is called, where you now have First Citizens Bank, for example.
Yes.
You had that area from time to time was actually blocked off for races. Arima has had a very rich history. Mm-hmm. And if you go to the municipal corporation, it's probably one of the few places where you will actually see all the various mayors that have served. And originally, Arima was really just what you call a 3-mile radius. And it has now extended into as far as Malabar. So you have 7 electoral districts. And those 7 electoral districts, you have Northeast, you have Arima Central, you have in the so let me just say it's divided into 3 constituencies. You have Arima, which is the constituency, my constituency, and which is Arima Northeast and Calvary. Mm-hmm. And then you also have Dabadi Omera. Mm-hmm. So Dabadi Omera is that constituency is also part of the borough. Mm-hmm. So there you would have Arima Central, and you would have Omera, and then you would have Malabar, and then you also have part of Lupino Bonnet as well that falls in the constituency of Arima. So it encompasses 3 constituencies. The challenge is that because you have 3 constituencies being part of the borough, you then have the difficulty when people use the term Arima, because you would realize that you have Dabadi Omera, you have people talk about Samaru Village, Arima, which part of that is also, some part of it would also be in the borough. Some part will be in the Tunapuna Piaco Regional Corporation. So it's a little complex really to navigate because of the use of the word Arima, when in truth and in fact it involves 3 constituencies.
If we were to look at the history of Arima, what would you say was the significant start of that gathering of the population in that area?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to the history of Arima. I mean, the Catholic Church, which has always played one of the most important roles in the history of Arima. And the link between the Catholic Church, of course, and the Carib community. If you really want to know about the history of Arima, it is very, very much linked to the Catholic Church and the Catholic community. I mean, if you go there to the church, you actually would have a lot of documentation of Arima, and it's of course specifically placed. So if you go there to mass at any time at the church, I mean, it's a totally different feeling and experience. And you know, there is a linkage, of course, between the Carib community and the Catholic Church. So when there is this Feast of Santa Rosa, and you have the special service, you would actually see that there is normally a ceremony after the church service where the Santa Rosa community, there would be this, well, I don't know, there's a procession that would leave the church and go through the borough of Arima and then return to the Catholic Church.
I remember when I was growing up, there used to be highlighted the Carib Queen, and there would be a procession with the Carib Queen. And at one time, I can't remember, I think the lady's name, her surname was Martinez at that time.
Well, you have had quite a few Burgess. I mean, the present queen is Mona Akwan. She was inaugurated in October of 2019, and she's actually a descendant from the Carib community. A former mayor, actually, Lopez. But it's always interesting that within the Carib community, you have the chief of the Carib community, which is President Ricardo Barras, and it's one of the few organizations where you have both a chief, which is Ricardo Barras, and you also have a queen that is part of the history, that is part of the hierarchy, and the celebration of well, not the celebration, but part of the structure, the organizational structure of the Carib community.
When I was growing up, there was much emphasis placed on the queen. You didn't hear much about the chief. Oh, I kept wondering, is there a king? You know.
So there isn't a king, but there is a chief. There is a chief.
And
I mean, one of the things, it was very interesting to witness the inauguration of the queen. I even though at that time I was, you know, across at the United Nations as the ambassador, but I happened to be home, and well, she invited me actually from New York, but it's a special occasion for the Carib community, that inauguration of the queen. You had people coming from several parts of Latin America, as well as from the Caribbean for that inauguration. And whilst, as you said, you may not be hearing as much probably as in previous years, but the queen continues to play a very critical role in the structure and the overall management of the Carib community.
I get the impression that there's a geographical area that government has allocated for the Carib, the First Peoples, to be engaged in the activities and so on in Arima. I remember being in Dominica and seeing an entire village of First Peoples being recognized in Dominica. Has government continued to support the Carib involvement in the area in terms of propagating the culture and so on?
Yes. Well, first of all, the establishment or the incorporation of the Santa Rosa Carib community was in 1973, And that inauguration really had to do with ensuring that you preserve the culture of the Carib community. They have now been allocated 25 acres of land. It's I don't know if you're familiar with the Blanchisseuse Road. It's just out of the borough itself, but it's I think it's safe to say a mile and a quarter on the Blanchisseuse Road. So as soon as you leave, I mean, if you're familiar and you go over the Calvary Hills, either there or the bypass, and you're proceeding north on the Blanchisseuse Road, it is on the left-hand side. Last year, for the Indigenous Day, the Honourable Prime Minister attended that event, and just on the 1st of August, in order to do what we call the smoke ceremony to herald the start of the Feast of Santa Rosa, we attended, as the MP, I was there together with the councillor, Jenny Scott, the mayor, Kathleen Castanet, and all members of council. The smoke ceremony was started, and about 2 weeks ago, the Honourable Marvin Gonzalez and myself, together with the chief of the Carib community, we visited the site because we are looking at the possibility of solar as well as the installing of electricity in the area. The Santa Rosa community, the Carib chief indicated that they're looking at ecotourism. They'll be focusing on having a plant so that they are going to plant cassava and have machinery so that you would have the traditional cassava bread. So it's going to be an ecotourism resort. They're also looking at technology, but in essence, to preserve some of the environment and just the natural beauty of the place. So if you have the opportunity, it's really refreshing. It's because you can see a lot of the hills. It's going to be clearly part of the Arima as well as part of Lupino Bonnet. So it means that the Cora area, that link. So there's a trail that would link actually Cora to this site on the Blanchisseuse Road. And I think in the next couple of years, you will probably be, we will see probably one of the most beautiful sites in Trinidad and Tobago.
Looking forward to that. I know, I'm looking at you, behind you, you have some baskets. And I suspect those baskets may be related, I'm guessing, to the Arima, to the Carib culture in Arima?
Well, if you attend, I think virtually any event, I mean, one of the things that, when we talk about the preservation of their culture, is if you go there now, you would see that one of the skills would be to be able to plait what we would have, some of us refer to as a sort of like a carrot shed. But that is one of the skills, and that would be one of the welcoming sites to this heritage village. I mean, they do make baskets. They do make a lot of craft, art and craft, and I really believe that it will be a tourist site. It will be an area that people would love to visit. I mean, there is an existing Carib community where you can go. It's located on Paul Mitchell Street in Arima, where at present you can go and see some of the work that they do, art and craft, and there are things there on sale. But I think this 25 acres, and they will also be acquiring some additional land, which would allow them to be able to be involved in agriculture, art, tourism. They're also thinking of putting up a eco resort, so that it would also be a place that people can come and spend a few days.
I know that the twisting of the tirit and the other things that they use to make baskets and so. And they used a particular instrument when they were straining the cassava, and they would put it in it and pull it up like that and so on. Would all of those things and would the showing of that craft be exhibited when tourists pass through that village?
Yes, it would. And as I said, cassava processing would be one of the initiatives. They already, you can get cassava bread. I mean, with COVID, of course, that's not that's not really possible right now. There are a lot of challenges, but normally during the Feast of Santa Rosa, the cassava bread is a normal delicacy. The hot chocolate, which they themselves would make the chocolate balls. So on the 1st of August, when we had the start of the smoke ceremony, yes, we were able to have, that chocolate that is made by the carib community. We didn't have the cassava bread this time, but for all the years that I've been a councillor or an MP and attended that festival, you can be guaranteed that you're going to get that. You're going to get your pastels as well. So you have the opportunity to taste some of the indigenous food of the carib community.
So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, which one of those delicacies would you say you're famous at making?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm learning. I mean, I love pastels, but I can't say that I'm an expert at making the pastels. And the Caribs would make the pastels slightly different. Mm-hmm. So depending, I mean, you do have indigenous people in different parts of Arima. So, for example, if you go to Brasso Seco area, the pastels are made with flour. In the Carib community in Arima, they would make their pastels mainly of corn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Of course, I think you're familiar, of course, with the use of ruku.
Yes.
Which is gives a totally different flavor, whether it's in the pilau, whether it's in, I mean, some people even use it in wild meat.
Yes,
but that is a standard use in the Carib community.
I grew up in San Juan, yet there were people in the area who had that Carib connection. In fact, the person that we saw as our grandmother in our house, who was not blood related to us, she was living in the house when my parents, we just continued that tradition and called her Mama. She came from Arima, and in fact, when she died, she was close to 100 years old. We buried her in Arima. The service was held at the Santa Rosa and all of that. But she used to have all of those things. And that's what brings the recall to me, because I remember the ruku tree. And with a little prickly, and the fruit was a little bit prickly on the end of it like that. And they would take out, I don't know how they would work the ruku thing, but they used it in stews and so. Do you see the necessity for us to educate our young people about all of these things?
Well, absolutely, and I think that is what this site is. I mean, they're also going to have a heritage museum, so that heritage museum, of course, would allow for the preservation of the artifacts as well, the cultural artifacts, because there are still artifacts that exist. But what is important, it's just knowing that these indigenous people existed, because when we talk about emancipation occurred on the 1st of August. We are one of the few countries in the world who celebrate emancipation, and we tend to talk a lot about slavery, because you had emancipation 1823, and then you had, of course, the Indians coming. So that, and then of course you had the end and the abolishment of that in 1945. And then you had the Chinese and those coming basically from the eastern part. But the truth is that it is important to know that you had the Caribs and the Arawaks here long before slavery, and they were the original people of Trinidad and Tobago. That is so important. You would recall what happened at the Parliament, when there was the ceremony, when the bones and so were dug up. And that was a very, very important event for the Carib community to participate. So before those groups were completed and before the Parliament started again, after the Parliament being closed and Dr. Rowley and the government doing this construction, and now you see, what the Parliament is like. And they had this ceremony, and that was really, really very important.
I want to congratulate the government on that issue, because I was about to ask you about that. And I remember that the entire construction was halted in order to treat with what was found when they were excavating the area and so on. However, I would like to know if that whole process and the significance of that process is going to be brought to the system so that young people could understand that and understand why we need to preserve what we have and who has some of the people who have gone before.
Well, I recall actually that the Carib community, they actually have continued to pay respects to the indigenous people and to the ancestors, so that they are actually making an effort to ensure. So it was not a one-off event. I actually attended last year when they had their celebration of the preservation and the acknowledgement of that, of, as you say, closing the parliament, actually stopping the construction. You had persons who were knowledgeable about exactly how the bones were removed. So, and they were extremely happy that that process was acknowledged and completed. But your point about the education, and the education is not only about that particular event, but it's also about what happens generally in Arima and the entire Carib community. Now, there are some people who are also saying that it's not just the Carib community, but you also have the Orisha community who are also saying that, I mean, you also had slaves buried there as well. So you have had people also bringing that to the fore and raising that as well as a concern.
I have been making heavy weather, as you notice, about the whole question of education of young people, because I'm concerned that a lot of what we have been has not been told to the people who are coming up, so that they can have a proper recognition and understanding, and even not just a love, but an appreciation for the sacrifices of those who went before us. Do you agree that we need to have some kind of relook at the way we teach all of these things to our young people?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you go back to the history of the West Indies, I don't know exactly what books you would have had the benefit of reading, but I don't see a lot of those books around anymore. Where you actually have these parts dedicated to the Caribs and the Arawaks, because if you talk to a lot of young people, they really don't have a clue about the existence of the Caribs and the Arawaks. So, I mean, your point about the curriculum and the extent to which we realize that you have to know where you came from in order to know where you're going. And having traveled, and that's why even the United Nations had the declaration for the indigenous people. You'd see, for example, in Canada, that they have decided to recognize and acknowledge the indigenous people. I mean, even the United States, when you look at the history, a lot of people don't know exactly who were the indigenous people, because it is a country basically of mainly, what you talk about, a migrant population. I mean, in Trinidad and Tobago, for example, a lot of us, we talk about the Indo-Trinidadians, the Afro-Trinidadians, but if you talk to the average young person or even some adults, they really do not know about the history of the Carib community and basically, as we see, the Arawaks and the Caribs. And it's absolutely necessary, or else we will forget that they were the first peoples here.
And I would love for us not to forget. And so I congratulate you on some of the things that I'm seeing you doing. I saw that you attended a couple of the ceremonies, and so the fine work of the shawls that they wore. I was looking at all of those things, and I'm thinking that those are things that we should highlight even more. And so that our population will be aware of the valuable things that we've inherited from our ancestors.
Yeah, well, we now have a new community center in Arima on Anglican Street, and you talked about those beautiful shawls, the knitting, and we think about the role of community development. I mean, years ago that was basic, that knitting I mean, you look at the colors, the red and the white, and on the feast of Santa Rosa, and when they have their celebrations, I mean, you see the women dressed, and you marvel. I have had the opportunity to travel to, to Colombia, places like Ecuador, even Venezuela, and you go into the interior, as I have gone in Ecuador and in Colombia, Argentina, and you see the role indigenous persons play. You see the pride. At the United Nations, when you have that day of indigenous people, you have them coming from all over the world, and it is a celebration. And that is what we have to cherish. That is what we have to be proud of. Our Carib community. And when you go to United Nations, as I have, and I'm able to talk about the indigenous people in Trinidad and Tobago, it is really, really special. And in Arima, you also have, Krista Adonis. He's a shaman. He's a medicine man. He does tours. So the Carib community also understands a lot about their community. I mean, you can also go there, go to him as well, get the chocolate. And one of the beautiful things with the Carib community is their linkages with the other indigenous communities, not just in the Caribbean, because you do have indigenous people in St. Vincent as well, in Dominica, and so when there's these special days, you have them coming from Suriname, you have them coming from Venezuela, you have them coming from Belize, and it's you feel the sense of pride. You see the linkages, you see the networking, and therefore the president of the Carib community, Ricardo Barrett, who has been extremely passionate about his community, really has to be commended, because he has continued really to press and to advocate for the recognition of the Carib community. He still believes he's not there yet, and there's still a lot of work to be done, because they do have a plan. You see, if you go there, he will show you his plan, exactly what he wants the community to look like in a few years. And I really want to use this opportunity to congratulate him on the excellent work that he's doing on the leadership, on his advocacy, and his really tireless efforts to ensure that the Carib community is recognized.
What is the name of your dog, Minister?
Well, actually, I have three.
Three? I wanted to introduce them to the public of Trinidad and Tobago, because I'm hearing them agreeing with us in this conversation.
Yeah.
Mr. I remember being in Ecuador some years ago, and not only were the artifacts and the craft and the culture being displayed, but actively marketed in the area. And so we were walking, all the cathedrals and so, but in between all of that, you were able to purchase things from the indigenous peoples. Do we have that happening here in a
yes, you can go to Arima. As I said, yes, and you can purchase stuff. And whenever the events, for example, at the recent opening of the center in Arima, I mean, you would have seen such wonderful crafts and work done by the Carib community, but they would like to take it a step further, so that once this village materializes in the way in which they envisage, you're absolutely correct. Because they are the women in the Carib community, I mean, they are very gifted, they are very skilled, and in the main, they are the ones who are involved in the making of the craft. So we look forward not just to the craft, but of course, as I said, the food that they have been so absolutely famous for. And I remember that I went to Ecuador, when I was Minister of Culture. And I mean, there's special days that the indigenous people come to the markets. And you see the absolutely beautiful work. And I have no doubt in my mind that when this village is set up as the Carib community wants and expects, that you will have the opportunity to purchase their craft. And we must remember that what it would also allow is exactly what you're talking about, the education, the sharing. And I think at that time you probably would have more people interested in learning, because you would be captivated by the art and the skill of the community, which still exists.
So that if I needed to buy a pair of alpagats, I can come up to Arima.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing again about that is the networking. So if you go to the community now, you would see that there are people from Venezuela who are there. So the linkages exist, and where you may have some, I wouldn't necessarily say shortcoming, but if you don't have enough skills here in Trinidad, what you would have is that networking and that integrating of the culture and the sharing of the skills and the craft. If you visit Venezuela and you visit Ecuador, Colombia, Argentina, you see the similarities you know, of the culture and of the art way. And I'm sure you would have, if you went to Quito in Ecuador and you go into the markets, you see that, I mean, they make just about every single thing, you know, they say the knapsacks. I mean, it's fascinating. So I believe that there will be all sorts of possibilities there for the Carib community once this 25-acre, this heritage site is up and running, and they are already there. So once you are in Arima, I think you should take a little visit and see what it's like.
I'm close to, so I would be certainly visiting, because my memory of my visit to Ecuador represents that whole thing, the activity, and you saw the people and they were actively selling stuff, and I was able to purchase a whole lot of things that I didn't know half of what I was buying, but I was buying because I like how it looking, and
yeah.
And so.
You remember years ago, you know, we used to have this bag that was, you know, the networking and the way they do the weaving, as you said, and, you know, you have the sign. So, I mean, we look forward to have, you know, your Trinidad and Tobago, Arima, and I think it will just be great. I mean, the hats that they wear, I'm sure you know, if you, the women like, you know, Bolivia, there are always some little variations. But
yes.
It's just the absolute beauty and the pride, and when they dress, you really can't help. I mean, there are some leaders, if you remember, they from Bolivia and others, Chile. On their special days, if they come to the UN, they ensure that you know, it's a statement, it's a brand. You're extremely happy to show the world that you do have indigenous people in your country, and I think that is what we look forward to.
You were listening to Forever Young, and our guest this morning is the Honourable Member of Parliament for Arima and the Minister of Housing, Ms. Penelope Beckles. You can send us your WhatsApp, because we know we're having some issues with the telephone lines, which originate outside of our building, not our problem. But you can send us WhatsApp. So if you have any WhatsApp questions or calls you want to make, not calls, messages you want to send to us, you can do that, and the professor will give you the number that you can call. Noel Richards, would you give the number, please?
Well, the number for the WhatsApp number is 275-1981, 275. Remember, the 622 numbers are not working this morning, so send a WhatsApp message, not a voice message, but a text message with any questions or comments that you might have right now. 275-1981.
Thank you very much, Pro. And we're back with our minister. Minister, we talk a lot about all of the indigenous activities and so on, and I want to talk to you personally now. Which would you prefer? Being a representative in Arima or being a representative in the UN?
I prefer being a representative in Arima. The opportunity that the Prime Minister gave to me to serve at the UN is second to none. It has allowed me to be a representative, but I truly enjoy serving. It energizes me, and I feel that's really where my calling is.
And so that you're committed to the Arima people. I'm asking questions without, I mean, that goes without saying. You're committed to the Arima.
The opportunity to return as an MP after 10 years says a lot, you know, and yes, I enjoy it. I mean, Arima is a very, very, very diverse community, you may or may not know that Arima actually starts way in the Las Vegas forest area. So I'm responsible for communities, a little piece of Las Vegas, Lafayette, Lancashire, Monraqua, Paria, Heights of Aripo, so that my extremity on the north would be the North Coast villages. On the east, I'm bounding almost with Valencia, and on the south, with La Orqueta. So I also include areas like Wallfield, Demerara, Maturita, and my western boundary, I go almost, I would say, to the Mousifa River, Chais, Parkway. So, I mean, it's a very large, it's urban, it's rural, it's agriculture. I mean, I have the great fortune, for example, Heights of Aripo, where you get the best watercress, at least for me, in Trinidad Tobago, you know. Yeah. So.
Minister, there's some WhatsApp messages that I'd like to let you know have been coming in. Karen Loveone says, great conversation, very edifying. Veronica David said, good morning. God put you in that ministry because you have a big heart and a love for God and your country. Stay blessed. Much love in the house. Gloria Small says, and I think Gloria Small is in Toronto. She says, hard-working minister. She should be the next prime minister. No nonsense person. So I want to ask you that question now. Is prime ministerial responsibility somewhere in the future?
Well, I think you would recall that I challenged for the leadership in 2014, and I lost. The prime minister beat me resoundingly. I mean, when you enter a race, you know the possibility is that you would lose. But it has, I mean, I have grown, I've developed. I think it has made me a better person. He has given me the opportunity to return to his cabinet, to come back and represent Arima. And therefore, my focus is strictly to serve, to continue to represent. I mean, we must accept there is no vacancy. And therefore, I am committed to doing the best I can for my constituency and capitalizing on the opportunity that I've received again to serve the people of Arima after 10 years. I mean, that's where my focus is. I would say that, you know, having been in politics for such a long time, I'm absolutely clear in my mind that wherever God wants me to be, I'll be there.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Minister, what would you say is the biggest need right now in this constituency of yours, Arima?
Well, the biggest challenge is water. You know, I understand that, and when I talked about Arima moving from its original, you know, mile, 2 mile, 3 mile radius, extending, and the number of housing developments over the last 20 to 25 years, it obviously has been a challenge for WASA. One of the biggest challenges is the environmental degradation, the quarrying that is causing the challenges for the turbidity. Now, it's always difficult to explain to the population that when rain falls, a day, 2 days, 3 days, people say, but you have had so much of rainfall, how it is you don't have water. I have served as the Minister of Public Utilities and the Environment, and I have a much better understanding of some of the challenges that WASA faces. Now, that doesn't mean to say that they're not striving to do better. So let's take, for example, if you were to think of a glass of Moby, you know, you have to strain it and you have to wait until it settles to drink that glass of water. So it also means we have to improve on the technology, because people don't really want to hear that rain has fallen and therefore you actually have to shut down the system because of the turbidity and wait until it settles before you can actually reopen that system to distribute water again. So I really want to apologize to the people, for example. I've had a lot of calls from Santa Rosa. Even last night, I had a call about the train line. There's a water leak, and people have been suffering for a little while. for water in Arima. That is my biggest challenge. You know, you have hills, you have the valleys, and then you have the flat areas. So people in Calgary and Mount Pleasant, for example, you have to deal with the issue of gravity to take the water up the hill. So sometimes it takes longer for that gravity. Sometimes it takes longer to go to the flat. The other thing is that people are on different distribution. If you're on the transmission line, you can get water a lot easier. If you're on a distribution line, you know, it takes a little longer. So that's my biggest pain. That's my biggest concern. I have been appointed the chairman for the transformation of WASA in addition to my portfolio as Minister of Housing. And together with the Honourable Marvin Gonzalez, we are really working overtime to address this issue of water, not just in Arima, but you know, in many parts of Trinidad and Tobago.
And so I have to tell you that this signal goes across the world, so that your cousin Yvette said hello.
Okay, hi Yvette, that's from Canada.
And I have two other messages. One said, good morning. Honourable Minister has made me proud because of her contribution and knowledge of her constituency. Keep up the good work. Another WhatsApper says, good morning, Minister. And Isaac 981 family. Rose here from lovely Arima. We love and support the Minister. God blessing. One person seems to be very close to you. So they said, good morning, Penny. I would never say that. But that person said, good morning, Penny. When would you assume leadership of the country? By the way, are you interested? And looking on and listening from Tobago. Interesting. And another person says, are there any descendants of the Arawaks? Because we keep talking of the Carib community. And the other one says, you are on point with that. Canada does recognize the indigenous people. I guess you're talking about the Inuits and all that in Canada. But those are some of the comments from our listeners. Any one of those things you want to respond to from Yvette back? I'm not going to say which one.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about that thing is that you talk about the good morning, Penny. And that's my brand. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. It means it's a little endearing. I mean, I understand that the people of Arima, but it's not disrespectful. I mean, that's my name, so I'm fine with the good morning, Penny. Yes.
And I appreciate that.
I want to say thank you, of course. I mean, it's still early to say thank you to Isaac 98.1 FM. Mainly because of your focus, of course, on the whole issue of spirituality, and a station that gives people so much comfort. You know, it's in this COVID-19. It has helped, especially a lot of women. I know you have a lot of followers, a lot of women followers. But it's so important for a station to be dedicated to that spirituality, that strength. I mean, that is what has given me my love for service. You know, you realize that so many people believe that you, as a politician, there is so much negativity that is attached to politics, and there is a feeling that there isn't much spirituality. But I am always convinced that there is a lot of spirituality in your political career. You have to take the personal decision to let God guide your decisions. And you have to pray a lot for the right people to come around you, to influence you, and to be able to say to you that you're not going on the right path, and be focused. And I have always been very fortunate to have a lot of people who would send you a text, send you a little WhatsApp, and people who pray for me on a daily basis, and that has helped me to enjoy my politics and to enjoy serving. And so I want to say thank you to Isaac 98.1 FM for the work that you have been doing in praying for the country, for the government, for the opposition, for the people. It is so absolutely critical that we keep that focus. COVID-19 has taught us a lot of lessons. For those of us who forget that, God sends us some powerful messages. And this pandemic is a very, very powerful message.
I absolutely agree. And thank you on behalf of the station. Thank you very much for the sentiments. I want to ask you one last question. One of the WhatsAppers has asked about the question of an immigration office in Arima, and they want to know when and if that is in the cards.
Well, let me say we are looking towards not just an immigration office. Some of the government offices have actually left, and it is something to do with some of the old laws that we have in relation to how high a building can go. It also has to do with us encouraging enough business opportunities to design and construct better buildings so that the government services can rent. We don't have enough, and I'm really making a plea to persons to construct offices that would allow persons to come and rent. Sometimes people say you bypass and you're going to Granby, or you see other places developing. I am definitely advocating for increase. We had the VAT office and the finance office that have left. And we need to have everything that we want for Arima right in Arima. And I'm working toward with the mayor to advocate and influence and convince that we need to have all these offices right there. It's a population. It's a Arima. You have all these various communities that come into Arima, both rural and urban. People come from Tamina, they come from Grandy, Mayaro, they come into the Arima market. It is a place that people love to come and congregate, and therefore I am definitely going to be advocating, not just for immigration, but as well for some other spaces. You would have heard in returning as the MP, I talked about Arima having a smart city status, and I also committed to that, and in the next couple of years that technology can really work for us, revolutionize the way we do things and how we deliver services.
Could we talk a little bit more about the smart city status and the level of benefit that would come to the community with that kind of introduction?
Well, I'm looking now at the wider constituency of Arima. I talk to the farmers of Wallafie who still have challenges in terms of connectivity. Depending on where you are, you don't have access. It's a challenge if you're going to places like Paria and Blanchishes. The connectivity isn't there. So I'm not just talking about the borough. I'm talking about my wider constituency of Arima. Rural communities shouldn't be denied connectivity. Recently I went to the community of Lalaha. They still don't have lights and water. It's not a community of hundreds of people, but that's not the issue. Wherever you go, you want to be able to stay connected, and you want people to feel comfortable. And it deals with it can address the issue of crime in a different way, because you have real time that people can always know where you are. You want to purchase an item, and I come back to the pandemic and how it has forced us to use technology to purchase items. We talk about whether it be cryptocurrency or blockchain, but we now have to think differently. Look at what has happened. We have focused a lot on education. Look at the challenges for students who don't have connectivity and who don't have a device. They are left behind. So therefore, I understand the importance of this. We don't know when this whole issue with COVID is actually going to be addressed to take us back to a kind of normal life that we once had. And therefore, the issue of technology, smart city status, is at least going to allow a certain level of comfort. That you can do things, you can stay at home, and you can reach wherever you want to reach within the shortest possible time.
I read somewhere as a first step that there is the plan to have a zone where we can have Wi-Fi available to persons, free Wi-Fi paid for by the council.
Well, that is one of the things. I mean, I've talked to the mayor about it because if you recall, you do have the Savannah, you do have Woodford Square. There are certain parts of Port of Spain. I mean, I'm in Port of Spain. I mean, I'm the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, and you understand what happens. I mean, you have traveled, so you know what it is. You know when the train is coming, when the bus is coming. You can get your instant messages, and everything changes. We have that area just in the vicinity of the market and along near Arima Velodrome. And that's what the mayor and I have spoken about. And it's going to be more than just the council being involved. I mean, there's some ideas that they have and some discussions that I'm holding. So we're really looking forward to that as a priority. So you have the velodrome there. I mean, just think about it. If that's the cycling. I mean, Arima is still known for cycling, still known for sports. We have produced some of the best cricketers. Even recently in Tokyo, we had at least 7 persons who were there from Arima. So there is a revolution that can take place in sports and in culture and many other things. Next year will be 100 years since in relation to Kitchener, and that is something we hope to bring again, to revive about all these cultural and sporting heroes that we have had in our.
Minister, I'm becoming so enthralled with the discussion, but I'm looking at the clock and I realize we're running out of time. But I have to talk to you at some time in the future about the reintroduction of some things. I remember you talked about cycling in the velodrome. I know we used to have certain sporting clubs used to be very prominent coming out of the Arima area. And there's so much that we can talk about, but we run out of time. I really want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak with you this morning on Forever Young. And if you have any closing thoughts, I'll leave the rest of the time to you.
Well, just again to say it's my absolute pleasure to be on Isaac 90.1 FM. I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to talk about Arima. I mean, it's not often that I get this opportunity. And as I said, I absolutely love serving my constituency. I thank God for the opportunity to return and represent the constituency of Arima that I love so dearly. I'm grateful to all of those who have sent text messages, those who are on board, and those who have been listening. I want to ask God to continue to bless your station and so that you can continue to do the work that you're doing for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, not just to aspire, motivate, and to let them know that through God, all things are possible. Again, thank you very much to 98.1 FM. And to all your listeners, have an absolutely wonderful day. And be safe.
Thank you very much, Minister. It was my pleasure speaking with you today. I really look forward to sometime in the future where we can talk again about our country and its development. God bless you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
We were speaking to the Honourable Penelope Beckles, the representative for Arima and Minister of Housing and Urban Development. I will take you right back to our Master Control, where Noel Professor Richards is on the desk.
Thank you very much, Errol. Thank you to the Honourable Minister for an eye-opening and enlightening interview with Errol Lewis. And God bless you, all of you. We've come to the end of Forever Young for today. Coming up next is the Saturday Shakedown with DJ Mickey. He's already in studio. So we look forward to that. So I'm getting out of here. I'll be back with you tomorrow, God's willing, tomorrow morning for Songs Glorious. But there's so much more in store for you for the rest of the day right here on Isaac 90.1 FM. I just want to shout out all the people from Green Street in Arima. Yes, Arima has a Green Street. Just wanted to let you know that. So I'm shouting out all the people on Green Street in Arima. God bless you. My name is Noel Richards, a.k.a. The Professor. And until I see you again, it is bye for now.
The captives free. The presence of the Lord is in this place. Yes.
What guides us in life? Parents help guide us to make the right choices and face life.
Teachers help